till the day I die. Straight ahead, no man can do like I can. I'm the queen of the land. Haters gonna hate, won't be sorry now. Shoot me down, but I'll rise again. I'm laying down the law, and you've been served. 1 by billion, been holding up half the sky. Raise your hand if you're ready and willing. If you know it's time. Time for a girl on time. Time for a girl on time. Time for a girl on time. Whether you're ready or not. Time for a girl on time. Whether you're ready or not. Time for a girl on time. Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die. Hey, swing those hips around. Can't stop, roll back down. My ladies, short, tall, thin or wide, always down and ready to ride. One by billion, been holding up half the sky.
Hey everyone, glad you're here. I'm Tammy, I'm the Siberian Wind, so I'm glad you guys made it. I saw Kathy in the chat, Pam, Melina, I believe is how you pronounce your name, Arlie, Angel, who else am I missing? I know I'm missing somebody else. Oh my gosh, Mitzi is also here as well. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. If you guys, Kathy says that she's practicing out fabric, so she's back and forth listening. You are perfectly fine. Today is kind of a work day. Judy is also here. Welcome in, Judy. So if you guys don't notice anything different, I have taken everything off the design wall. Everything is tidied up and looking very pretty. The bobble quilt will go back up when I work on that on Thursday. So when we do that Thursday class, we will have that up. I was going to be filming tutorials today. Life threw a couple of curves at me, so I didn't get to film like I planned to. But I will get to filming and get things ready. Chloe is here. She says, hello, Tammy, and all. Welcome, welcome. I know I'm starting a little bit early, you guys. It's not trying to rush you. I promise. It is not. I never try to do anything important before the 6 o'clock time rolls over. So this time beforehand is just happy hanging out, getting going kind of time. Chloe says, happy Tuesday. Yes, absolutely. Pam says that she might be cutting, so she might not be chatting as much either. That is perfectly fine. Don't forget to do that thumbs up, though, so that way if you lose connection or anything else happens, you've already done it. You can do thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm good with either. But yeah, make sure you hit those buttons. That way YouTube knows that you like me and you are happy to be here. So yeah, it's been a day. It has been a day. You guys can see my hair is spray. I may pull it down here in just a minute. It's been that day. Taco Tuesday, says Kathy. Oh, I wish. It's going to be Taco Saturday. Glenda says, hello, TV chat. Welcome in, Glenda. Welcome. Yeah, no, Alabama is playing Tuesday night. Alabama Crimson Tide football is playing Tuesday night. And, of course, we have to have the game on. So it will be on out in the living room while my Zoom retreat is going on. I'm going to be in here with you guys, not out there eating tacos all day, watching football. But I will be able to give you score updates because, of course, he'll be popping in to give me score updates. Gotta love it, right? So I had medical issues today that knocked me out a little bit. So I'm still kind of catching back up to where I was earlier today. Katie is joining the chat. Welcome in, Katie. Thank you. Kathy says that we have a restaurant here that has tacos for $2 on Tuesdays. Oh, wow. One place that my husband and I lived, we actually had 99-cent tacos on, I don't think it was Tuesdays. I think they did it on Thursdays. So, Pam says, I'd take a taco if we were ordering. I know, right? So, my husband has a very definitive view about what goes on a taco. And so we're going to talk food for just a few minutes because I gotta kill time anyway. So bear with me. So, Kathy, I am fine. I have a recurrent comorbidity with my fibromyalgia. It's called costochondritis. And so basically what happens is all of my muscles around my rib cage just tighten, kind of like a really strong corset. And I've had some instances where it's been more like a vice, like it's just twisting and turning. And it's all muscles. It's muscle spasms and the tendons and all of that around my rib cage. So it occasionally tightens in, and I had an episode of that today. And my husband was like, you need to go to the doctor for that. I was like, yeah. Every time I go to the doctor, I'm not having symptoms. So they don't know what they're seeing. So getting to the doctor when I'm having an episode is insanely hard. I would have to basically do a walk-in, and that's if, and keyword being if, that's if I could actually travel with as much pain as I'm in when it hits. I really have very few warnings that it's going to set on. But today I definitely had no warning. I had no warning. Went to lay down to take a nap because I wasn't feeling particularly good. But I went to lay down to take a nap, and it just kept closing in. Thankfully, my husband was here. Pulled out the little massage gun thingy that we got for him for his umpiring and, sore muscles after baseball games and all of that. And normally I'm using it on his back because of his back issues and everything. And today he was using it on mine. So he's like, what does this do? I was like, same thing it does to your back. It just loosens your muscles. But thankfully I was able to nap and sleep afterwards. So that worked really well. Kathy says that she meant to catch me Sunday night, but it was out at 7 p.m. 7:30 her time. So for almost 10 hours I needed. Oh, I bet you did. Being out for that long, I bet. So what I'm working on today is not what I was originally planning to work on, but we're going to bind. We're going to bind a quilt. I don't have the hanging sleeve ready, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the front, and then after I get off my live, I will make a hanging sleeve, put it in place, and then that way all I have to do is some hand tacking on that. It may not look pretty, but it will work. Worst case scenario, I will take and staple it. I know that's not cool. It's not what we would really like to do, but it may be what I have to do. So I have accepted my fate. So I told you guys I have quilted the Harvest quilt. Now, the tension on my long arm is way off, and I thought it was just my long arm. But I brought this quilt over to Beauty and finished quilting it. So I quilted the center of it on my long arm, and then quilted the borders, the little green border and then the white border. I quilted those on Beauty, and Beauty did the same thing that my long arm did, the Beast did. So Beauty and the Beast, neither one of them liked my thread. So it is what it is. The back is not going to show. It's going to be up against the wall. So I'm not super worried about it, but I'm going to show you guys the back first. The stitches will hold for it to be a wall hanging. And worst case scenario, if the stitches start to come out, I will rip every last stitch out of it and quilt it again. And I'll use different thread, because I think maybe it's the thread because both machines not liking it, and I use the same thread in both machines. So it could be the thread. And I don't know why I'm now having problems with this thread. But, it could have been because it's as old as it is. It could be because I've moved it so many times. It could be just because it decided it's giving up on me. So it is what it is. So this is the back. The back is the whole length of it. If you guys remember when I made the vertical Jelly Roll Race wall hanging, which is these Harvest prints, I took off 10 rows because the quilt was going to be too wide if I didn't. So what I did, my backing, this backing fabric, this brown that I've got, was on one of my bolts. I didn't have a whole lot of it, but I had enough to go the length of the quilt if I pieced it together. So I had two pieces, and so I was able to piece it together, but it's not wide enough because this quilt is more than 44 inches wide. So I had to put something in the middle. Pam says, binding is my least favorite part. I have about 6 half done. Didn't you put a quilt or two in a show? How did they do? You've missed some shows, so sorry if you already told us. Oh, it is no worries, Pam. So I got one 7th place ribbon. And that's on a quilt I did years ago. The other ones did not place. I did get a 2nd place at the, or was it 2nd premium? Yes. I got a 2nd premium at the local fair, and then I got a 7th place at the state fair on 2 different quilts because I didn't enter the same quilts. Joyce is here. She says, "Hey, teammate, everyone. Welcome in, Joyce." Kathy says that it's her least favorite part too. She has 4 quilts to bind so far. Oh my gosh. 4 quilts is a lot of quilts, you guys. Of course, I have 6, sitting up there easily. I got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 that have backing with no quilting. I've got 2 that have partial quilting. And then once I put borders on the one we were doing Sunday night, I will have 2, not just 1. I will have 2 quilt tops with no backing. Alright, so I put borders on this and did the green, dark green. So the dark green is also in all these little squares, so it's that same color. But I didn't want it to be an overwhelming amount of green anywhere. So the border does go all the way down and around. And some of these fabrics in here, some of these jelly roll strips are directional, but I didn't bother with the directional. I didn't care. It was just not going to be, I was not going to worry about it being directional. So I'm going to bring you guys down to the machine. Kathy says that she's headed out of town this weekend, so she may try to hand bind it, at least one of them. Absolutely, that's a good way to do it. Do it in the car while you're riding. Pam says, "That's pretty, thank you. I appreciate that." Alright, so you guys are seeing my Dr. Pepper, sorry. Get that out of the way and get this out of the way. I'll bring this camera in here in a minute. So, what I did on the quilting pattern, so you guys can kind of see this, and you'll have to bear with, there are loose threads all over the place. I have not trimmed them. I've not done anything to clean it up. Rayanne says, "I really like what you did with that whole quilt." Thank you. Now if I was just happy with the quilting, I'd be much happier about it, but it's done and it will be okay to put up on the wall. So it's okay. Misty says that she started machine binding. She doesn't mind binding the quilt. I'm right with you. Chloe says, "Very nice, thank you." Joy says, "Beautiful quilt, Tammy, thank you." And Glenda says, "Beautiful, thank you as well." She's the driver, unfortunately. Sister never drives. She has driving anxiety. Hey, I'd rather drive if somebody has driving anxiety. Absolutely. I will take one for the team. Okay, so here's what I did. And this is because I had to use 2 different machines. Jess is here. Welcome in. Welcome in, Jess. So everything from the border, this green border in, I quilted on the Beast. I quilted on my long arm. That's what her name is. Her name is the Beast. So there's some of it that I did a really good job, keeping my distance from each other. This is just a meander. There is no pattern to it. It is just, let's fill in some space and get some quilting in. So there's no distinctive pattern anywhere on this quilt. It is just, and I hope I'm not the only one, and I hope I don't ruin this for anyone else. But when I do see meanders, I do think of the images from the science textbooks of the, your lower belly. I don't want to say words that might upset people. But I think of the contents, what your lower belly looks like. RV Quilt Quest, RV Quilt Quest Rhonda. Welcome in, Rhonda. Welcome in. So when I see a meander, that's actually what I think of. So when I am doing a meander, I am kind of quite literally thinking of that as I go. I don't know of a better way to think of a meander. Like, I don't know of something else that would, suit the bill for what it looks like to me. That's just where my mind's eye goes with it. So it is a meander. It is just a fill in. Pam says that her meandering comes out like worms and she's okay with that. I love it. Judy says meander reminds me of a road trip. Yeah, when I think of a road trip, I think of like the Shop Hop map where it goes all the way around and like stops back at the beginning or something. So I can't think of that because all the roads connect and they come back. Topographic. Yeah, topographic, it comes back to itself too. Everything's connected. With a meander, nothing is connected. Oh, that's what you think of. Oh, awesome. I'm glad you guys have better ideas than me. So what I did is I quilted everything from the border in on the Beast, on the big machine, on the long arm. And then when I came back up here to quilt this outside, these two borders, and I was quilting that on Beauty, I did intentionally come off into the jelly roll section many times because I wanted it to look uniform. So even though this is quilted on two separate machines, you're not going to be able to see a definitive, this was done at one point, this was done at another point. You're not going to be able to see that. So that was my goal, and I was successful about that. Rayanne says, I think about how a butterfly flying around. I like that idea. I would be awful at it because I can't draw. That is gorgeous. That's a gorgeous plan. Pam says, I've always heard to try for puzzle pieces, but I can't think that over and over. You see, that's where my problem is. I don't think of like the road map and the topographic. Those, I don't think of them as, like, I think of them having connecting ends. And I just, it never, it never sits with me. And I don't know how to make it sit with me. And, it's the same pattern. We're all talking about the same meander pattern. That's very organic. But each one of us, as you guys can see by the comments that are coming in, each one of us thinks about it differently. And that's so cool that, you guys think about it one way, one person thinks about it one way, another gets another way, all of that. All right, so I have not pieced my binding together at all. I barely got functional, so we are going to work with that. And what you guys are seeing off in the background is the, let's see, are you seeing the reflection? Okay, yeah, you're just seeing the reflection off of whatever the light that's coming in right now is sunset light. But I think you guys are actually seeing the top of my thread rack because it's really lit up right now with the sunset. Sunsets are coming earlier and earlier. Oh, Katie, she says, okay, I know I miss people saying hi to me. Sorry, I had to deal with something. So hello, everyone. Let's try again. That's awesome, Katie. You're so funny. You're so funny. All right, so what I did is I went ahead and cut my binding strips. Now, I do have this small one. It's going to go in the middle. I'm not going to, try to piece it at the end of anything. I want it to kind of go towards the middle. And I did a binding calculator at Robert Kaufman's website. Anytime I go to look up the binding calculator, that's where my phone goes. It's a really great calculator. You can do binding and you can do backing. So anytime that I'm struggling, when I was sitting there struggling in the quilt shop the other week with how much backing I needed to get, the Robert Kaufman site is where I went. And the backing that it calculated was absolutely accurate. I could have absolutely gone with the 4 3/4 yards it said, but I went ahead and got 5 yards just to be safe. And, it would have been perfect either way. Kathy says that she's been petting her Land That I Love fabric. I have so much to get done before I even look at the cutting instructions. Oh gosh, I haven't even started. You're good. I have not started. Katie says y'all hit that thumbs up like button, please. Yes, please. Absolutely. Hit thumbs up, hit thumbs down. Just interact with one of those buttons for YouTube. YouTube likes those buttons. And guys, I am less than 50 subscribers away from hitting the 500 for us to get monetized over here. So that is kind of like a goal to hit. So we are 50 subscribers away. I am so in awe. You guys have really stepped up and come out for me, so thank you. The Robert Kaufman site has so much on it. It's so helpful. Yes, it is. Kathy says that she just has the fabric. That is all. Yeah, no, I've got the fabric. I haven't even started looking at the cutting either. So you're good. You're good. So you guys, if you're going to join the Land That I Love quilt along that we're going to do, that Kathy's going to come over here and join on my channel for, we are going to start doing that on Thursdays in November. We haven't set how many Thursdays we're doing yet. We're still doing the final discussions on that. We're looking at possibly first and third Thursdays. Yeah, thank you, Joy. She says, yes, please play the rent. It helps Tammy out. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So that's going to start on Thursdays in November. And we haven't talked, the finishing touches as to whether I'm going to make this a weekly segment. So, weekly we're just going to kind of hang out, kind of like we do on the Sunday nights, but do that on a Thursday and have a specific project. Be working specifically on Land That I Love and do that until July. The other option is that we do like maybe the first and third Wednesdays, or maybe every other Wednesday, something like that. Zaza, welcome. Thank you for being here. So yeah, we will have more details coming up in October. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging too long, I promise. I'm not going to do that to you. But yeah, bookmark Thursdays starting in November, and we will be giving you more details on both of our channels coming up soon. So that we can do Land That I Love. Chloe says, Land That I Love is beautiful, but I have too many other projects and only so much time. Right? I understand that. I totally understand that. My reason for doing Land That I Love, aside from the fact that it's gorgeous, is because it's a project that I do need to complete. Like, it is an actual, it's going to be a Quilt of Valor. It needs to be completed. And what better way to pair it than to do it, do it as a block of the month, take my time with it, work on it, and get that done, so a veteran can have it. So excited about it, says Kathy. I've been wanting to do that quilt since I got that book. That's awesome. Yeah, my husband saw it hanging in the shop. We were in a quilt shop in Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City, or just north of Salt Lake City, and he saw it and fell in love, and it was, when are you going to start it? That was like basically his next question was, when are you going to start it? Because you need to start it soon. Because you need to do it. I'm like, well, I will get to it. No, he's like, when are you starting it? And 2 military families completing it. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the nice thing is, any of those patterns that go into the Land That I Love quilt, you could actually complete them and do multiples. So you could do a whole bunch of the blocks and put them together into one quilt. You wouldn't have to necessarily make the whole Land That I Love quilt, but you could definitely make a block here, a block there, things like that. Where is the pattern? I don't think we've seen it. I still don't know my surgery date, so I'm not sure I can commit yet. Oh, you're fine, Pam. Either way. The Land That I Love book, or the Land That I Love pattern, is in the Celebrate with Quilts book. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is from Celebrate with Quilts. It's by Lissa Alexander and Susan Ake. And we are going to do it as a block of the month. So it's not going to be a super big rush. But it is going to start in November. And we are going to start with the duplicate blocks. That much I know. At least over here, I'm starting with the duplicate blocks. Because if I don't get them all done in November or December, I can come back and work on them, filling in some space here and there, and get them done throughout the time that we're doing the lives. So that way, one way or the other, it will be completed. I was gonna see, I do have it over here. Let me grab it out so you can see the picture of the book. Oh, I rearranged things too today. So this is what the book looks like, Celebrate with Quilts. And there's the author's names, Lissa Alexander and Susan Ake. And that is the cover art for the book. So when you go looking on Amazon or any of the other, sites that you might want to find it at, like Fat Quarter Shop or your local quilt shop, that is what it's going to look like. So that way you've got the correct book. I know when I was buying college textbooks way back when, my biggest challenge was knowing whether or not and actually, while I'm thinking about it, it is in the links below the video. I didn't know whether or not I had it there as well. I did do Amazon and Fat Quarter Shop links. So there are 2 links for the book there. There's also a link for our Facebook group if you're not signed up for the Facebook group. And there's also a link. Oh, that's a great idea, Pam. I like that idea. She said, I'll see if my library has it first. Perfect plan. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. All right, I am going to have to press my binding. I have not done that yet. So I'm going to bring you guys off of this camera and bring you guys back over. And I'm going to see if I can get this in the camera. Ooh, looks like I might be able to. I just got to readjust things every time, but that's okay. We can do this. Okay. Yay! You guys will get to be able to see what I'm doing over here at the iron. And I don't have my other camera. My other camera is set up ready for, it's set up for the tutorial. So I'm not going to disturb it yet. Joyce says we'll be able to sew along with that one. Can't afford the book, but we'll work on something while watching. Perfect. That's the way to do it. Kathy says that her library never has books like that. I really wish it did. I don't know if my library does. I do still need to get my library card. I got chided the other day for not having it. I met a lady that runs adult services at my local library, and she actually runs sewing classes, and their projects and things like that. So you come in and there's like make and takes that you can do, things like that. And I'm so shocked because I've never lived where a library has actually had an adult crafts program, or where anybody has run an adult crafting program. So I was kind of shocked, and so she said I needed to go in and get my library card. So I will probably be doing that this week or so and see whether or not I can get in with those. Kathy says there's one in town next to us that's larger, and I'll have to check there, see if they do. Yeah, absolutely. One of the libraries that I went to when I lived in North Alabama, my local branch tended to have a few that I could borrow from. I actually have a stack of foundation paper piecing patterns that I copied for personal use out of one of the books in that library. They said, because I asked, I was like, how am I supposed to do this? And the librarian told me that I would be allowed to copy it because it was for personal use, which was really exciting. Really exciting. Can't wait until I retire so I can do that. Everything happens while I'm at work. Yes, it does, Kathy. Yes, it does. When I was working, there was no chance for me doing any of this unless I did. My shift schedules tended to have my weekends off in the middle of the week. So I didn't have a Monday through Friday kind of schedule usually. So I did get to do things that would happen on, say, a Tuesday or a Wednesday for 6 months. And then when the schedules rotated again, it might be Wednesday, Thursday, or I might get Monday, Tuesday. Like, that was kind of how my schedules went. I didn't get to choose. Like, I got to choose some, but I really didn't get to choose everything that I wanted. Oh no. Kathy says that she can't retire for 11 more years. That's a long time. That's a very long time. So I didn't retire intentionally. Mine was medically retired. So my body basically told me that I was retiring whether I wanted to or not. If I could have stayed working at that job, I probably would have. Things have changed, and I would have been able to work from home when the pandemic hit. And that would have absolutely been fantastic, but I had a really rough time with the HR staff at my site, and they were making my life very difficult. So retirement was kind of the only option, or medically retiring was kind of my only option. I was having so many sensitivities, I was asking for accommodations, and they were telling me that what I was asking for wasn't an option. And it wasn't that it was financially not okay with them. It was, quote, against company culture. So that was the issue. Helen and Linda, welcome in, both of you. Thank you for being here. Linda says she wants to retire next year, but all her customers say, no, you can't, and that's oh. Kathy says that she changed careers midlife. She's worked for this entity since 2014. I understand that. I worked retail until 2010, working in the pharmacy retail industry. I worked for Walgreens. In case you guys wonder, I did work for Walgreens. And then when I stopped working there, I was running my own store. I sold sewing machines. One of the other careers that I had in college was working in tech support and working as a phone support agent. So I was constantly the person on the phone telling people how to fix their technical problems. So that was my job, and so I got an opportunity to return to that in the cell phone industry, and so I returned to that industry, the tech support industry, and that's where I medically retired from. I did try to go back into the workforce. I tried to work for, I think it was Pizza Hut, honestly. I know it was pizza. I think it was Pizza Hut. So I was taking phone calls at my home. Helen says that she worked for Walgreens too. Oh, wow. I stopped working for them before they got the computerized monitors that they've got now. So if you go into a Walgreens today and they've got the computerized touchscreen register systems, I left before they got those. So I have no idea how those are working. Like, I don't know how their codes work. I don't know. I was the old school system. I had to know all these different register codes and type things in manually. I was very fast at keyboarding, so especially on the keyboard screen there, that was super easy for me. And I also did inventory management for Walgreens too. So the store that I was at, I would go, okay, so the computer would pop out a report of, here's the items that haven't been counted in, 90 days or something. And so I would have to go out there and double check, and especially high moving items, that would be on my report. Things that had a lot of price checks or price changes, I would go and check the shelf to make sure that the tags were correct. All that kind of stuff. That was my job for a really long time. And then I went into management because it was more money, and that's what I needed to do for my son. And I was leaving them when I tore up my back. So she was in the dark ages, so no fancy stuff. Oh gosh. I was actually a pharmacy technician. I did enjoy that part. I loved that part. Judy Neighbors is here. Welcome in, Judy. Yeah, I was a pharmacy technician, and gosh, I would, a lot of the assistant managers, because in order to be an assistant manager at the time that I was an assistant manager, you had to have your pharmacy tech license. You didn't have to be a certified pharmacy technician, but at least in my state, you didn't have to be certified. I was about to take the pharmacy certification exam so that I could move up, but I was a licensed pharmacy tech. Joyce says that she was medically retired too. Yeah, it's awful. It's rough. Helen says she did stuff like that too, but old school. But gosh, I loved being in the pharmacy because when you were a pharmacy tech, especially as an assistant manager, there was always another pharmacy tech there. So I was never the only pharmacy technician. So I could, and this is maybe me doing a little bit of power tripping from enjoying it too much. But I would have the pharmacy tech that was normally a pharmacy tech, like that was their only job was being a pharmacy tech. I would have them helping the customers because they knew their faces better, and I would go in the back and work on filling prescriptions. I really enjoyed that job. The pharmacist always double checked everything, so I didn't have to panic. But I really did enjoy filling prescriptions and such. It was not an easy job, so I'm not saying that, but my OCD brain loves to count. So counting all those prescription pills, it was exciting. I don't know why it was so exciting, but it was exciting. I enjoyed doing that. So I had to set timers when I went back there to remind myself to go back to the rest of the store. All right, hang on. Let me bring you guys over real quick. Let me move the camera up so I'm not making you guys sick while I do that. Let's see. Helen says that her retirement was from school district and medically too. Oh my gosh. Well, at least we all have quilting, right? We all have quilting, and that is our bonus. All right, I am going to move this camera. I apologize. Please don't get sick from me moving the camera. But I do need to move it. Okay. There we go. Now I'm not completely in the way. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to bind this quilt. Now, I went with the measurements from the Robert Kaufman, so that's what we're going to go with. Let me actually make an adjustment as well. Let me do this, so that way you guys aren't sick from me moving the camera. I'm going to move this other camera so you guys aren't, like, just seeing all this stuff behind me and, like, me being, like, way down low. There we go. All right. Kathy says that her daughter loves being a pharmacist but hated Walgreens. The one she worked for was so short-handed and always called her in. Where she works now, she has home office that she scheduled 2 days. Yeah. I mean, that would be ideal. I don't disagree that my store was definitely understaffed frequently. So I'm not shocked that another store was too. And I don't know what the reasoning is. I don't know who's responsible for that. I think it's the district managers. But it's also, whether they can get pharmacists to come work for them. And I think there's other places that are hiring or paying more, maybe. So people are going there versus going to Walgreens. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know where the staffing issue is. But that would be my assumption. But, it is a common problem. Let's see. Oh, she can take on how many of her shifts that are open as she wants. Yeah, see, I would love that kind of, flexibility. But I do not have a skill set that would be high enough up in the pharmacy chain for me to do that. Oh, she had bad manager will take away everything. You have a bad manager, there's no coming back from that. Alright, so what I'm doing is I am starting with a tail. Now this isn't super long, it's not as long as what some people start with, but I am starting with a tail. So I'm going to leave that tail hanging out. I'm not going to pin it or anything like that. I don't think it's necessary. for me to pin it, so I'm not going to worry about it. My binding is 2 1/4. So if you do your binding 2 1/2, I would recommend that you go in a little bit on your stitching. So don't go straight 1/4 inch. If you have 2 1/2 inch binding, I would do maybe a 3/8 inch seam. I have 2 1/4 inch binding, so I can do the 1/4 inch seam. And again, because this is going on the wall, nobody's going to be handling it a whole lot. And 2 1/4 is more than enough to pull it around and have plenty to go behind. So you can pre-pin this. I don't pre-pin binding, and here's why. Bias binding, and I primarily use bias binding. Bias binding is going to stretch. So if I pin it, it's still going to stretch, and I'm going to have to unpin as I go. So there's no point in it. Chloe asks, do you usually use 2 1/4 inch binding? Sometimes. I've kind of started using 2 1/4 more frequently in the last maybe year. I used to use exclusively 2 1/2 inch. But I have found with 2 1/2 inch binding, if my quilt is fairly thin, which this one is, it's not, it's not thick, but it's not super thin. But I don't want a whole bunch of extra hangover, and I don't like trying to do a 3/8 inch seam. I don't do very well with that 3/8 inch seam. I do a 5/8 for clothing, and then I do the 1/4 inch for quilting, and that's about where I can keep it. Kathy says that she only clips the corners. I'm clipping the dog ears just because it's a little bit easier for me to handle. And I would end up clipping them when I go to flip the binding around. So that's the only reason I'm clipping them. I'm not super worried about them. I could be leaving them, but I'm not going to. Alright, so I am at a 1/4 inch away from the edge of my quilt. Okay, so here's the edge of my quilt. It is at my 1/4 inch marking on my presser foot. That's why I was using my scissors to help me figure out exactly where I was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise up my presser foot, and I'm going to turn my quilt, and I'm going to sew off the edge at a 45-degree angle. So does it have to be accurate? No, it does not. But I go ahead and cut my threads. I don't bother with trying to hang on to it or anything else. My quilt is heavy, so it's going to try to fall off my table. So I'm not worried about hanging on to threads or making extra threads or whatever. Chloe says I'll be using for a table runner. Oh, awesome. Yeah. I've started using and I did overstitch one stitch, so I'm clipping that. There we go. Alright, so here's what I do, because binding is never overdone, okay? Binding is always something a lot of people struggle with, so I'd rather show you now. Okay, so I sewed to a 1/4 inch, and then I sewed off at a 45-degree angle. So now I'm going to take my binding and fold it at that 45-degree angle. And I'm just going to hold it in place. If you can't hold it in place or you struggle with that, go ahead and pin that. That is perfectly fine. Then I pull this down and I just line it up. Okay? So I'll show you again when we get to the next one. But that's all I do at the corners. And when I go to start sewing, I can go ahead and start sewing right at the edge of the quilt. And I don't have to backstitch or anything like that because there's already stitching in place. So I am just working on getting back on the quilt and stitching my 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Joyce absolutely says she needs to be right back. She needs to feed the babies. Absolutely, Joyce. Absolutely. So one thing I'm going to try in 2025, and I'm not sure which project I'm going to try it on. So I may try it before then, but I'm not sure for sure yet if I will. But one thing I want to try is a faced binding. And a faced binding doesn't show on the front. It only shows on the back. And that is a style of binding I have never done before. If you decide you want to use a flange binding, if you want a separate flange, you can stitch it on at the same time that you are stitching on your binding. But you could also baste it in place or pin it in place beforehand. So if I wanted to add a flange to this, which I don't think it needs, I would have gone ahead and added that. Or I would have it ready and I would be attaching at the same time that I'm attaching this binding. And yes, I am stitching on the front. Before anybody hadn't paid attention or caught on to that. I do stitch, when I machine stitch, I stitch to the front, then I flip to the back and I clip it in place. I use those Wonder Clips. That is my most time-consuming process, but what I do is I go sit outside and enjoy the good weather while I clip my binding in place. So I will flip it to the back and I will Wonder Clip it in place, and then I will come back in here and I will position my needle. Let's see, I love the faux flange binding technique, but haven't done that in a bit. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done it. Pam, I haven't done the flange in a while. I have flange on a couple of quilts, but I haven't done it in a while. And my last quilt that I submitted with a flange in the binding, I did get docked points at the quilt show because my flange was not even the whole way around the quilt. So in one section it was like 1/8 of an inch, another section it was closer to a 1/16 of an inch, another section it was closer to a 1/4 of an inch, you know, that kind of thing. So it wasn't even. So I did get docked points for my flange not being even. So if I had not done the flange, I probably would not have gotten docked points, but again, I wouldn't have learned that that is something that the judges are absolutely looking at. So I haven't done the flange in a while, but I may do the flange again soon. She'll be doing flange on binding on her Craftsman, says Kathy. Awesome. Do I have any quilts right now I want to do flange on? Ooh. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm going to be in so much trouble. Y'all are mean. Y'all are mean. Y'all gave me an idea. Y'all are so mean. Okay. When I do this double wedding ring temperature quilt, can you imagine if I managed to put a flange binding or flange in the binding all the way around the temperature quilt? Oh my gosh. I'm going to be in so much trouble because I'm going to probably want to add that. And I may not be able to add it to this one. I may have to, the sample one may not get the flange binding, but the one we're doing in 2025 may be getting a flange binding. You guys are so mean. Y'all help me come up with ideas that are going to, like, put me behind schedule again. I love you for it, but I'm going to be so underwater. Oh my gosh. Oh, Susan, she says, hi, I had to subscribe on my phone. Having done it on my laptop, you shouldn't have to subscribe on both unless you're using a different sign-in on your phone from your laptop. My husband uses one of my YouTube accounts, one of my old YouTube accounts, we use one of my old YouTube accounts for logging in for YouTube TV, and then we use my current one, the one that I use for this, I use that for a whole bunch of stuff. And so each account that you have, awesome, Pam, that's awesome. She says, Susan, does that mean you get 2 votes, right? Kathy says, I'm always behind schedule, so I just put that in my schedule. I don't have time to have that in my schedule. I got a really good phone call today. So right as I was waking up, actually they woke me up from my nap that I very much needed. But the nap that I took when I woke up from it, I was getting a phone call about my second opinion on my wrist. So I have an appointment October 11th. She said I could go the 7th, which is a Monday, but that's my birthday, and I'm not going to the doctor's on my birthday. There are a lot of things I will do in this world. Going to a doctor on my birthday is not one of them. If I have to go to a doctor on my birthday, it is not by choice. It is an emergency matter. I will not schedule an appointment for my birthday. Just not happening. It's like there's a lot of... I was at the doctor's on my first birthday ever, so I'm not going to be at the doctor's on any subsequent birthdays if I can prevent it. Isn't that awful? Kathy says that she's literally preparing fabric to record a video tonight for tomorrow. Well, after I get off of here, I will probably swap gears and start recording. I really want to sit outside and enjoy the weather, but I don't think it's going to be... I don't think I'm going to have enough daylight because the sun's already setting. So I won't be able to finish binding this today. And I was supposed to be working on this, having this ready for tomorrow so my husband could decorate. And we heard a loud crash today. And we couldn't figure out what it was. It was our closet, like the entire shelving rack thingy that the apartment complex installed in our closet has come off the wall and has fallen. So everything that was on top of it, everything that was hanging from it, is all across the closet floor. So we are going to be doing that tomorrow instead of anything else. Susan says that she went to see the doctor yesterday about her back. She's officially free of COVID. Yay! She's on muscle relaxers that I take at night. That's a good way to do that. I'm glad you are free of COVID. That's incredibly good news. Kathy says it's already dark here. Yeah, earlier in the summer, we're now in fall, but in the summer, this would have been the time, before after sunset Sundays. Now this is like before the after sunset Sunday, so we're not getting any part of sunset now. Like, sunset's coming through right now. Alright, so here's that second corner. And if you guys can see, let me see if I can get the camera to focus. The camera does not like me tonight. So we have stitched all the way a 1/4 inch away and stopped at that 1/4 inch and then turned and stitched off the fabric. So I'm going to take this up, fold it at that 45-degree angle, and that's how I know I'm going to get that crisp point. Oh, the mosquitoes are horrible, says Kathy. Oh, I feel for you. Thankfully, we do not have that problem here. Mitzi has got to head out tonight. Take care all. Absolutely, Mitzi. Thank you for being here, sweetie. Thank you. All right, so now I have folded that down, and we are going to put this in place. Chloe says, congrats to be free of COVID. Susan, is your back feeling better? Yeah, it's rough when your back hurts. That was part of the issues I was having earlier today was, when my rib cage seizes like that, like my muscles seize up, it's my back, it's everywhere. My husband was like, do you feel better now? I said, I can breathe. All right, awesome. Susan says that her back is feeling a little bit better. That's awesome. That's awesome news. Awesome news. So, yeah, hubby wanted to hang this up in the dining room where the other quilt is right now, my springtime quilt. And so I told him I could have it done by tomorrow. And we've got a meeting tomorrow morning with someone, and then we get to come back and finish working on the closet and figure out what we're doing with the closet and how we're fixing it. See what all we're going to have to go buy to fix it. I'm not looking forward to that part. That is not part of the plans for my day. or my week. So this week and next kind of have taken a weird shifting turn. Or this week and 2 weeks from now have taken a shifting turn. So it's just been one of those. It's been one of those. All right. Yay! We are almost to that third corner. We are trucking along with this, you guys. And we're just going to get it attached to the front. I'm not worried about flipping it and attaching it to the back right now. But I will get that done quickly, just not today. Ooh, I bent that pen. Let me change out pens real quick. I don't know how I bent it, but it is definitely bent. Ooh, I did not do enough binding somehow. Somehow, some way, I did not do enough binding. I'm about to run out of binding, guys. So, I can get to the edge, but I still have 1.5 sides to go. Linda says that she's heading out too. She did a Target run, and now to put the dog and cat supplies away. They're part of the reason I can't retire, but love all of them dearly. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. I'm going to have to cut more binding. I cannot believe I did not. Here's what I normally do. So you guys are hearing this straight from me. What I normally do with my binding is when the calculator tells me the yardage, I normally just go ahead and cut all of my yardage that, they told me to cut. They said half a yard would be plenty of yardage. So normally I would cut that whole half of a yard into binding strips, and I would attach all of them. And frequently it's overkill. And it was not overkill this time. I actually need the extra strips. So I'm going to cut strips here in a minute. I'll bring everything over and we will cut some strips. And I will be able to get past this corner before I have to cut strips. So that's a good thing. But I still have a long side and half of a short side to go. And that pen, in case you guys were wondering, I was marking which side my husband wants to be at the top. Susan says I did do the sub job at the middle school today, using an elevator instead of the stairs to go out to the classroom. On the 3rd floor, where I was all day, didn't want to try the stairs. I don't blame you. I do not blame you. Laura, welcome in. Welcome, welcome. Glad you made it. You are just in time to see me run out of binding. Because I did not do what I normally do. So the calculator also tells you like how many strips to cut, and that is not what I did. I did the number of strips to cut, but apparently their calculations are different from mine. So I still have the rest of my piece. So yeah, we're going to turn the corner and get started stitching, and then we will put this back down and finish stitching. So this is how much binding I have left. And I have this whole side. So it did not work. So the number of strips part did not work. Alright, so I flipped that binding up at the 45-degree angle. So I've got a good 45 degree. I'm just going to hang on to it. And now I'm going to flip it down to create my 90-degree turn. Okay? So I'm going to stitch this down just to get it started, and then we're going to cut more binding and assemble those binding strips and press them and all of that. And I'm going to back stitch to hold that in place. Okay. So this is what I got left. And I got all this to go. All the way around. So yeah, a side and a half. So I definitely did not do enough binding strips. So let me grab the mat and ruler and all of this stuff. And actually, I'm going to go ahead, well, yeah, I'll bring it over. It's like, I'll go ahead and get it over here. No, I'll bring it over so you guys can see. Oh, guess what? I had 2 binding strips on the floor. So somehow, some way, I ended up with extra binding strips on the floor that I did not sew in. So that's probably part of it, but that's definitely still not enough. So, let's see. Yeah, that's definitely not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough. Okay. So that strip is going that way. That strip is going that way, so those can be attached. I love it. Chloe, she says, woohoo, chores are good enough for now. Now to sew. Yay! Now to sew is the fantastic words. Fantastic last words of all of us who are ready to sleep and call it a day. Oh, because now we have all the energy to stay awake and sew all night. Alright, so those 2 strips are attached. Alright, so what I do, that way you guys see what this is going, what this is doing. When I cut my bias binding, I go ahead and cut a 45-degree angle on my fabric. And normally I would not move it, so me moving it over here is kind of really out of the norm. But you guys are getting to see this real time as to what I would have to do. Andrea's here. She says, howdy everyone, better late than never. Just woke up from an unplanned nap. That's okay. I had one of those today too. Alright, so what I do with my binding when I go to cut binding is I go ahead and cut a 45-degree angle. Then I fold my fabric. So this is my selvage right here. You see that, going all across the way? I fold my fabric so it makes kind of like a long tube, but I fold it so that that 45-degree angle is now my new edge that I want to hang out with. Chloe says that she should be resting, but really wants to sew a little bit. I don't blame you. I do not blame you. So what I do is that cut edge, I just line it up and then I fan fold my fabric. And I try to get it as close as possible to even. And then I just start cutting strips. So I'm thinking that we'll need 4 or 5 strips, probably, to complete this. So that's 1, 2, and this will be 3, and we'll get 1 more before I start getting into the fabric that I really don't want to cut into. Like the sections are going to be really small. Chloe's saying hello to Andrea. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, my mouse moved. I was like, why is this weird thing on my screen? I bumped my mouse and it moved over some stuff to highlight. Alright. And we're going 2 1/4. Let's see. There we go. Alright, so I don't worry about this little section here. This does go into my scraps, so I cut 1-inch squares out of it, or I cut whatever kind of squares I need to out of it. So I never panic about that. Now, one thing I did make sure of earlier, and this made my life a lot easier, is the entire length of my strips, I've got one end that goes that way, and the other end goes the other way. So I'm going to make sure that all of my strips are doing that, because then I don't have to sit there and figure out which way that they need to go. Like, I don't have to sit there and try to, okay, do I need to flip this one? Is this one good? I don't have to think. All the thinking is done. Alright, now these 2 strips do not go that direction, and this one's really wonky because it was the very end piece. So I'm going to use my lines on my ruler, lines on my mat, and I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle going the correct direction. And so I'm just going to trim this up. I'm going to get this selvage off of here, as well as this wonky end. It's very rare that I have these kinds of problems, but they do happen. And I don't want you to be scared of them happening. It does happen. And I'm just going to cut off extra. I'm not worried about it. If it comes down to it, I will, cut another strip if I need to. So it is what it is. Okay, and this one also did wonky, and I think it's because I moved everything. So I'm going to do the same thing to this strip and get it cut so that it's not wonky at the end. So we don't have like a dragon's head or, you know, whatever funky name you want to come up with it for. We don't have any kind of weird stuff like that going on. Let's see. Kathy says, I got one of those binding tools that will do that for me. I always placed the 2 strips the same sides together at an L and did the diagonal thing. Yeah, that's, I mean, I'm doing the 2 strips together, you know, at an L. And I know there are tools out there, but this doesn't bother me. Like, this isn't anything I struggle with. So it's just, if I remember to do it, it's great and fantastic and helps me a lot. If I don't, then yeah, I'm sitting there, you know, back and forth and going, you know, doing all that too. Laura says that Andrea, she also took an unplanned nap this afternoon, so you are in good company. That makes 3 of us. Laura, me, and Andrea all took unplanned naps today. I was going to do tutorial filming today, and that got waylaid by the nap. And by the medical issues I was having earlier. So that got waylaid, and tomorrow is not looking promising. So I probably will be filming tonight. That way I have tutorials kind of going. It's really not where I want it to be. I want to be a little bit further along, but it is what it is. So it's going to be a segmented thing for right now. Just depends on how much energy I have. The husband is out at the theater, so I do not have, you know, distractions calling my name. Because if I really got up to doing anything, he'd want to go work on the closet tonight, and I don't really want to work on the closet. I don't know how much repair work I'm going to have to do, but we're going to have to empty the entire master bedroom closet to do it, to fix everything up. And there's a lot of clothes in there. So I don't know what we're going to do. My husband's like, I can use a different one, you know, a different closet for my stuff. I'm like, no, we're not starting this mess. Because if I let him start using a different closet, then he'll just continue to accumulate clothes. My husband is a clothes fiend. So no, we're not doing that. Andrea says that she was working on quilt math, and that always gets me. Yeah, quilt math gets me too. Some days, not all days, but some days it does. So I completely understand. I'm going to, working on a closet, I just like those tasks, right? Me too. Me too. Alright, I'm going to bring you guys over, and then we're going to bring the ironing board over so you guys are seeing this. Let's see. Let me get the ironing board in place so you guys aren't just seeing me leaning over everywhere. Let's see how good I do. Gotta re-angle it. That's okay. We can do that. Alright. Here we go. Susan says that tomorrow after work, because she's subbing this week and next week, she's driving across the mountains to pick up her quilts from the Washington State Fair. That's exciting. And it's kind of good timing, because you need to get those before, snow starts hitting. Before the snow really gets here. Guys, my dog is passed out. Good question, Zaza. She says, Susan, how many did you enter? Inquiring minds want to know. I want to know this. I want to know how many you entered. There's a quilt show coming up in Gillette, Wyoming, at the beginning of October. It's always the first weekend in October. And I've been asked to submit a quilt or two, but I have no idea what quilts I want to enter. So, yeah, I do not know if I'm entering it or not. Laura says, I'm fine if I just keep going, but I sat down and was taking a break. The break turned into a long nap. I hear you, Laura. Exciting season. Good question, Chloe. Chloe wants to know, Susan, if you won any ribbons. I knew that, before I went to never even went to the state fair this year. I went to the quilt judging and had problems with the car, so I never went back to go look at my quilt hanging at the state fair. So I was kind of disappointed that I didn't do that, but it was what I could handle at the time. So if I do enter into Gillette, I've got to drive up Thursday or so to enter quilts, and then I need to go back on Sunday to go pick up my quilts. And my husband can't go because he has other things going on Sunday the 6th, which is the day before my birthday. So I don't have a lot of options. Alright, so I will have one more to press once I get this attached to the existing binding. So this is not going to be, like, I'm not going to pull you guys back over for that because I did forget to go ahead and sew it. I should have just gone ahead and sewn it on when I was sewing these others, but it's okay. So we will have one more, I'll have to put one more seam in to attach this to the existing binding pieces. Let's see, Susan says that she got home today to a notification that there will be inspections next week. No tripping hazards, clear paths, hard to keep areas clean with boxes everywhere that have been packed for the renovation. Oh my gosh, yeah. I can imagine. We're supposed to have inspections in October, and so they're going to come into the apartment, and so I can't have all of my closet contents all over the apartment. They're going to have to be back in the closet one or the other ways. Susan says that she put 2 quilts in, first time entering in the state fair, and both got blue ribbons. Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations. I still have yet to get a blue. I will get there eventually. I am not there yet, but I will get there eventually. But that's exciting. 2 blues. And first time entering. That's pretty astounding. Pretty astounding. A lot of congratulations coming through the chat. That is very exciting. So where is the Washington State Fair held? What city is that held in? The Wyoming State Fair is held in Douglas, which is not the state capital. Cheyenne is the state capital. But I haven't lived up here long enough to identify where all the state fairs are. Not that I could get out to Washington State right now anyway. Now, would they have shipped those back to you is the other question that I have too. People come into your apartment to inspect how you live in it? No, Katie, they actually don't. They are coming to change out the air filters and test all the smoke alarms. Susan's been quilting since 1988. That explains it. They're coming in to test all the smoke detectors. So they'll test the one here in my studio. They'll test, there's one in the living room. There's a couple in Puyallup, Washington. Okay, gotcha. They're basically just making sure that we don't have illegal things going on. So, if somebody is doing, making their apartment into an illegal business that is outlawed in the state of Wyoming, they would be required to report. But they're not looking for it. They're making sure that the apartment doesn't have holes in the walls. We don't have mice all over the place. Chloe, I like it. She says, Susan's got the skills. They don't ship back. Has to be in person. Oh, that's awful. That's rough. That is very rough. That you have to drive the long distance to go pick it up. But I can understand they don't want to be responsible if it gets lost in shipping. So I can understand that. It's still rough, but I can understand it. Alright, so I'm going to bring you guys back over. There we go. So, yeah, they're mainly just here testing the they'll test to make sure water runs everywhere. Candace is here. Welcome in, Candace. She says, hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Glad you made it in tonight. They'll make sure that the water runs. They'll make sure that, I don't even think they test for hot water, but they do run all the faucets. So they'll run the kitchen sink. They'll make sure that the garbage disposal turns on. They'll make sure that, you know, if anything really looks out of place. Like if it looks like our fridge is broken or, you know, we've got trash all over the apartment or something like that, then that would be an actionable offense that they could, you know, say something to us about. We don't live like that, but, you know, it's just a visual inspection, and it's also the air filters and the smoke detectors. They don't look at, like, what's on the bookshelves or, you know, they don't look, I don't think they look in, I don't remember them looking in the closets for anything. I think I think it would stand out if my closet door can't close because everything's falling out of it. And it looks kind of funky. I think that would stand out a little much. I think I'm just going to hand press. Let me see. Let me see if I feel like I can do hand press for this. No, I could, but I don't want to. I'm going to bring it over, press it real quick. Katie says, I'm glad I don't live in an apartment. I'm right. I wish I didn't. Kathy says that she has a friend that manages apartments, and they mainly do that to maintain the property, and it is an insurance thing as well. Yes, it is. What they check is filters, under sinks for leaks, batteries for alarms. Yeah. Joy says that she refuses to live in an apartment. When we were moving up here, we did look for a house. We looked really, really hard, and we had a real estate agent who was helping us look, and things just were not falling into place for us. So in order for us to get up here, we really didn't have a choice. Then when we were going to, she's going to try to pack and clean Thursday and Friday. That makes sense. Yeah, when we were moving up here, we tried to bypass living in an apartment. We really did, because we don't like it either. It's not our ideal. It's not fantastic for us. But what I will say that it has done, especially moving all the way across the country, is it did give us a place that, you know, we were guaranteed that things would work. Supposedly. We're just going to say it that way. And it gave us a place to land when we got here. So we didn't get up here and not have a place to go. Medically, I can't handle doing that. I need to know that we have a place to go. And they would only let us sign a 13-month lease. We would have signed a 2-year lease if we'd been able to. So they let us sign a 13-month lease, and so when we renewed, we went ahead and renewed for 13 months. So it will put us getting out midsummer. So we will be out the end of June next year. So the end of June 2025, provided we find a place to go. Our problem this past year with trying to find a place to move to is we could not find a place that was affordable, that we would qualify for, that would approve us. I mean, we have no evictions or anything like that, but the local rental market is absolutely insane. It's not a very good rental market here. We almost were able to rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath trailer that we could have made accessible enough for me. The gentleman who owned the properties said he didn't want dogs. He didn't want dogs or cats in the property, even though other properties that he owns do have animals. So because I have a service dog, even though he couldn't legally deny me because of the service dog, That's basically what he did. He stopped talking to us because we had an animal and that he would have to allow. So, we were running into that kind of problem here. Let's see. Susan says, if I could afford something else, would, but I'm retired and worked as a classified school employee. No full-time available, so I'm in low-income apartments. I understand that, Susan. And now I will say this. Low income here is a lot better than low income where I'm from. Low income where I'm from is a totally different ballpark. Katie says the apartment that Tom and Blaze moved into will get inspected regularly, apparently. Yeah. And, I mean, they're not, as long as you're not living like a slob, where you have trash everywhere, you're hoarding, there's no clear walkways, you should be fine. If you're hoarding, if you have an infestation problem, because you're not throwing trash away, things like that, that can cause the rental company to come back and say, hey, look, we're done. But usually, as long as you're, doing your normal, you're living like normal people most of the time, if that makes sense, you're not hoarding, you're not causing a mess that's going to infect other apartments with your mess, it's usually not an issue. Let's see. Pam says, housing prices, purchase or rental. Yeah, it is. It is. So to give you kind of an idea, the apartment that we're in is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and I never write a check for less than $1,600. Now that's including my water, which is split among all the. So if we use less water, it doesn't necessarily affect it if the other apartments are using more. So, how much ever water all of the apartments in my building are using affects my prices here in this building. So the other buildings don't affect my building, but let's say somebody does have a leak or leaves water running all night or something like that, it will jack up my water prices. And I don't think that is fair, but it is the way that the apartment building was built. Yeah, Katie, I agree. She says, I don't know how people afford the high rent and mortgage payments. I don't either. The housing situation, thanks to the pandemic and all the lockdowns and everything else, really put us on a crash course, so that people who don't have, massive amounts of income and can afford to get ahead of the game really are stuck. We could not afford to get ahead of the game at the time that all of this was going on. So, we're kind of stuck. And with the rising cost of food and gas and everything else, it's not making it any easier to try to get ahead of it. I'm just trying to remain positive about it. And I look at it, we're trying in January to qualify to buy a house. And if we qualify for that, then, our path is going to be different. But if not, we're going to position ourselves so that by, the time that we have to let them know here that we're moving out, we will have a game plan of where we're moving, because we're not staying here another year. We're not renewing. Let's see. Susan says, the only thing I have that my ex-mother-in-law thought was hoarding is my fabric stash. Thankfully, her son stood up for me. Yes. So that's, it's not really. So you see how much, fat quarters I've got. I've got 2 shelves of fat quarters, and then I got yardage. I've got 3+ shelves of yardage in front of me. But it's well stored. It's not all over the place. It's not a tripping hazard. I think that's the bigger deal, is when it's a tripping hazard, because then you can't compensate for tripping hazard. So the tripping hazards are typically what apartment complex people will classify as a problem. Katie says that the last place that she lived in before she moved to Greenland cost her $650 a month and could barely pay that, but it wasn't a dang apartment, thank goodness. It was 18 miles out of the city. Yeah. I owned a house, and my mortgage is less than what I'm paying now on a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. I had to sell that house because we moved out of the area and needed to sell it. But yeah, it would be so much cheaper to live in that house right now than it is to live here. Yeah, Katie, Joyce is right. She says, "Believe me, Katie, it's not easy. You have to decide what's needed and what's not." Yeah, that's really where we are right now. This economy has absolutely tanked. What would have been middle class before. Katie says that she could have her horses without boarding them. Yeah. There are people in the city here that are paying less than what I'm paying. Easily paying less than what I'm paying. But I'm kind of stuck because I got to be able to afford to move, got to be able to afford to do all this other stuff to make a change. And that's where the challenge is. Kathy's asking Katie how the boys are doing. Susan says, and in low-income housing, if you make more money, your rent goes up. Impossible to save. Yes, that is very true. Because it is income-based, low-income housing is income-based, you are obligated to disclose your income, and the moment that income changes, they want a piece of it, because then they don't have to subsidize as much, which is, it's amazing how much lower and middle class people, I mean, technically my husband and I should be classified as middle class. We don't qualify as low class or low income. We don't. We've tried. We don't qualify for low income. But we don't make enough to make any changes either. Like we would be what would have been considered middle class, but we'd have no options to actually save and ever get out of this, stuck place that we're at right now. Oh no! My chat disconnected. Are you guys still there? It says connected. Okay. Alright, they're doing good. Kathy, Thomas is waiting on a couple things. Release the afternoon care for Blaze for when he starts working, and he's waiting on Family Dollar to let him know when he can start working. Oh, that's awesome, Katie. Pam says, I was hoping to buy a house when I return, but probably priced out. Yeah. And that's, that's kind of where we're at. We would qualify to pay the mortgage because, we make enough to pay the mortgage, but we don't make enough to make the down payment or, all of this other stuff. Like, we're stuck in the middle. All right, let's see. Housing is a problem here in Greenland too, unfortunately, says Katie. One thing I don't have to worry about, which is a big blessing. Yes, it is a blessing. Very much so. All right. So I do have extra binding now. So my binding is extra large. I'm going to turn this light on so you guys can see. And I'm hoping I'm not going to blind you. Yeah, it's going to blind a little bit. All right, let's see if I can turn it down. See if that helps. All right, maybe. All right. So I don't know if that's helping. You guys can tell me. Is that helping or not? I don't think it is. All right. I'm going to do this so I can see you guys better too. All right, and actually, let's do this. There we go. We're going to make it super easy to see. Okay, so we have our binding attached here. Okay, this is the original binding. This is the strip that we added. Okay, so this is the last of the binding. And usually I like to leave more room than this. And I did not stitch this, I did not back stitch this, so I can back this out a little bit. So I've got some more room. Not that I really need to, but I can. Okay? Just showing you that I can. Alright. So what I've done is I cut off a piece. How many inches for tail do you leave? Just over a hand. That's actually kind of how I guide it. So there's my wrist, and there's my fingers, and there's my, little bit of tail. So that's how I guide it. I don't do anything specific. So let me actually cut off another piece because I got plenty of room to do it. All right. Let's see. Susan says if my income goes up $200 or more and it's before all the deductions, she has 10 days to report it or could be evicted. Oh my gosh. That's rough. Yeah, I know they are ridiculous. I'm looking at a specialized program that we would possibly qualify for. So we're hoping we qualify for that. So if we qualify for that, that won't be an issue. the interest rate will not be an issue. All right, so I cut off a piece of my binding. Okay, you guys can see the fold. I cut off a piece of my binding. And what I've done is I've just laid it on top of my previous binding strip, my first one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut my binding right up next to where this piece is. Okay, so this is as flat as it can be against the quilt. I'm not stretching it, I'm just laying it flat. Okay, I'm going to take this other piece and I'm just going to lay it on top. Okay, nothing fancy, just laying it on top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that piece and this top piece of binding. Okay, so I'm just transferring it over. And what I'm going to do is this tail piece, you always want to make sure it's the tail piece, you don't want to cut off the wrong side. Okay, I'm going to cut it even with the other side of this binding strip piece. Okay, so now my two pieces are overlapped by the width of my binding. Okay, all this extra can go to my scrap pile. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these two ends and we are going to cross them in that same L shape format that we were doing before. Okay, and I'm actually going to go the other way because I have a little bit, oh no, I don't need to. Let me unpick this. I have a little bit of a seam here and I really don't feel like dealing with it tonight. I could deal with it, but I don't feel like it. Alright. So what I'm going to do, and it really doesn't matter which one is on bottom and which one is on top. If it matters to you, then just pick a direction and stick with it. Okay? So this piece is going up here, and this piece is going to go form the L on top. Okay? And you guys get to see something special. I actually use pins for this. This is the one place where I always use pins. It's not because I couldn't do it without pins. This is the one time that I prefer to have pins. Because then I don't have to finagle and hold anything. Even when my piece is big enough, I don't have to finagle and hold it. Okay? And I'm not worried about my pins even being particularly straight. Susie says, hello, welcome, welcome. Susan says the other stressful thing right now is I've just been over a month to finish packing up my apartment. Have to be ready for the first Monday in November. Ooh, okay. Judy says, me too, Tammy. Only time I use pins. Yeah, this is one of the few times that you're guaranteed to see me use pins. I didn't pin my binding to my quilt. I haven't pinned any part of this quilt, but I am going to pin this because this is a pain to sew if you don't. Okay? Now, you can sit there and draw a line if you want to. Good question, Katie. She's wanting to know, Susan, why are you having to pack up your apartment? Are you having to be moved to another apartment? What is going on? We want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Alright, let me get my thread back in my needle. There we go. And I'm going to sew corner to corner. So I'm just making sure where my corner starts because I didn't mark it. You can mark it if you want. I don't bother marking it. This is another, why bother with it? The pins is the one holdout. Yeah, I agree, Chloe. She says, that's a lot of work, Susan. Having to pack up the whole apartment to be ready for the first Monday in November. That is rough. Packing is never fun. Alright, so what I've done is I've sewn that diagonal before I do anything else, before I touch anything else. I'm going to straighten up my quilts and make sure, yep, it's going to look good. It's going to lay flat. It will be fine. If you run into a problem where it doesn't lay flat or close to flat when you do that, that is when you go ahead and unpick this seam and make whatever adjustments you need to make. Now, if you want your seam, if you want your bias binding to lay a little bit more tight or taut, then cut just a thread closer, or just sew a thread closer. You know, you can always make that adjustment. I'm not super worried about it. I am going to press this because all of my other seams are pressed. So I'm going to press this so that way it does lay a little bit more flat for me. If I can do it without burning my fingers. That's what we're going to hope for. No burnt fingers. The management company that owns the complex is renovating the apartments. Right now, her building has no siding. Tomorrow, the roofing will be taken off for new roofing. We will be in a hotel. Oh my gosh. That's the renovations you were talking about. Oh my gosh. That's a lot. That's rough, Susan. That is very, very rough. I guess it's a good thing that they're making the adjustments because, you know, you need to have that done before winter hits. But that's still rough. That's still very, very rough. I couldn't imagine having to do that with my disabilities just for them to do other stuff for me. That would be so tough. Okay, so here's why I do 2 1/4. Okay, so my binding is sewn on. So when I flip it around to the back, okay, this is just going to bear, and you have to forgive the extra thread in there. This is going to just barely cover that stitching back there. And that's what I want. So I will go through and clip this in place so that I can stitch right on that binding and go it all the way around. Judy says, wow, Susan, I hope that will not take long. How long will you be out of your apartment, and who pays for the hotel? Yeah, the management company has to pay for that hotel. I can already tell you right now, they have to pay for that hotel. If they're kicking her out, they have to pay. Alright, so here's the other thing I want to show you while I've got you guys here. And this is going to be the last thing, and then we're going to call it a night. So when you go to flip these corners, look at how nice that does. Okay? I know it's hard for the camera to focus on it, but it's a perfect miter. And one of the things that the quilt judges were telling me at the most recent quilt show I went to, the state fair, when they were doing the judging, they told me, or they told everybody, is if your bulk is going this way on the front, on the back, make your bulk go the other way. And that will leave you with a flatter corner, so your corner won't stick up so much. So what I may do is I may come in here and actually iron press my corner. Once I get the back folded and clipped in place, I may come in with an iron and press that to make sure it holds. And I will also make sure when I clip this in place that I am giving myself a perfect mitered corner here as well. These dark colors are hard for the camera to pick up, but I will give myself a perfect mitered corner here as well. Okay? So the front of this quilt is, the binding is attached. So the only thing I have left to do is make a hanging sleeve and clip the binding around to the back side, and it will be ready to hang. I'll have to trim some threads, but that is, it's binding. What do you guys think? Does this help? Does seeing it again help? Let me know. New flooring, new appliances. I'm pushing for laminate flooring, not the crappy carpet. Yeah, I would push for the laminate as well. The carpet in my apartment is awful. The laminate that they put in here for these quote luxury apartments is chipping. It's horrendously chipping. So we're gonna get charged for that when we move out, which is so sad. But Judy says love it. Helen's giving thumbs up. Hopeful says Chloe. Yay! Awesome. So yeah, tonight I think I'm gonna have to take a break. I'm not gonna be able to do my tutorials tonight. So I may be working on some of it, but not actually sewing all of it. They pay for the hotel and isn't in the one that has kitchenettes, and we have to pay for going out and buying takeout. We'll be compensated for it up to $1,250. Oh my gosh. Rayanne says, great job as usual. Thank you, Rayanne. I appreciate it. So 2 weeks, but others have been out for over a month. Oh my gosh, Susan. Well, you'll still be able to log in and come hang out with us, right? That will be your distraction. Come hang out with me anytime. Anytime. If you are not signed up for the Zoom retreat and you want to sign up, the link is in the description below this video. If you do not sign up before Friday, I will not process new signups on Saturday morning. So you guys do need to sign up before Friday evening, so that way Saturday morning when I go for my live, everybody who has signed up will be getting emails Saturday morning. Okay, so check your email Saturday morning. There will be an email before the live giving you the instructions about how to log into the Zoom retreat. It is free. There's no charge. Just come hang out, come chat, come meet and greet everybody else that's in the Zoom retreat. It's not going to be published on YouTube, so you don't have to worry about your face getting out there for the public to see. Oh, you're fine, Andrea. She says, sorry for not chatting. Hubby just got home with Sonic and my fingers were occupied. Oh, you're good. You're good. Judy says, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so my plans for this week, and just so you guys know, I'm going to have tomorrow morning, and probably most of tomorrow is going to be spent fixing my closet. It's not here in my studio. It's not that kind of good luck. It is going to be fixing my master bedroom closet. Everything came off the walls today. It's like falling out of the closet. So I'll be doing that tomorrow, and then if I have time, I will go ahead and film tutorials. If not, it is what it is. And I do need to get the rest of my bobble quilt assembly steps done, so I can show you guys the rest of that and get those patterns out as well. Then Thursday afternoon and evening, I do have an appointment, and then I will be back to working on tutorials again. So yeah, my life took a twist and turn for the left direction instead of the right direction all of today. But we will be getting back on schedule, and then this weekend we will absolutely be having some good times. We'll be relaxing and sewing with everybody else, just having a wonderful, wonderful time. Susan says that she will be taking her laptop, her sewing machine, and what she needs to do quilting. Perfect, yay! That's awesome. Alright, well, I am going to go ahead and get off of here, you guys, because I do have stuff I need to get done. Maybe I'll go ahead and get the bobble stuff, getting it ready, getting it going, so that way I'll be ready for Thursday morning, one way or the other, and I can get back on track with everything. And I'm so looking forward to Saturday. I'm so looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to hearing voices and seeing what you guys are working on and all of that good stuff. Oh, you're good, Susan. It's going to run all through Sunday as well. So once we open the Zoom retreat up, Judy is going to bed. She says, night out and night, Judy. Thank you for being here. So I will go live 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time Saturday morning, and then at 11 Mountain Time we'll go ahead and open the Zoom retreat up. It will run all the way through midnight, and then Sunday morning at midnight it's going to start over. So you guys will have 2 links in the email depending on when you're coming in or whatever. So you can come hang out on Sunday as well. All right, so thank you all for being here. I appreciate you hanging out. Appreciate all of you chatting. Thank you so much for being the best part of why I'm here and why I'm doing what I do. So thank you guys for being here. I really do appreciate every last one of you. So have a great rest of your Tuesday evening. I will see you guys Saturday. If I don't see you guys before then, you're good, Pam. I see it. She says she just registered, but she knows she now has some shopping to do, so she won't be there the whole time. That's okay. That is okay. We'll see you when you get to stop in,